Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Dispatches. I'm your host, Brady Kreitzer. Our guest today is Vice President of Public History at Fort Ticonderoga, Stuart Lilie, and he'll be discussing Fort Ticonderoga's new exhibit, experience maybe, rather, on Henry Knox's noble train of artillery. Stuart, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Stuart, you're a first time guest. Many of our viewers and listeners have probably been to Ticonderoga. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I started with Fort Ticonderoga back in 2011, and I had this awesome mandate from our president and CEO, Beth Hill, to build a new living history program. And it was, very exciting. It took me away from what I had been doing. I started out my career with Colonial Williamsburg while I was at the College of William and Mary. I started work for Colonial Williamsburg. Had a chance to not only learn the saddlery trade, but there were some awesome folks in the trades department who took me in, and I got a chance to learn about tailoring and shoemaking. Uh, I had the chance to design some military programs for some of their special events, and then uh, I continued as a professional saddle maker right up until this opportunity to come to Fort Ticonderoga and take the place's tremendous layers of history and build a whole living history program around that. What initially was going year by year through these layers of the 7 Years' War and the American Revolution. What is now real-time revolution, doing our 4 key years of the American Revolution in real time over 4 years.
Absolutely. Yeah, Fort Ticonderoga is one of my favorite places. The history is kind of a la carte there. Whatever you're looking for, you can find it. I guess it's for a 250-year-old fort plus. I guess I could ask what's new up there.
What's new? Well, I mean, over the last 15 years, over the last decade, 5 years, I mean, we've built our own historic trades program. We have our fifes and drums who bring to life the music of the different periods, whether it's French music or Brunswick music, or right now we're kind of diving into the deep avenues of American military music and find some new stuff. We have a maritime program with our tour boat, the Carry On, which provides 75-minute cruises around Lake Champlain. This 5 mile section of water that's probably some of the most historic in North America, certainly our region. Uh, we've really continued to work on our wonderful King's Garden, this colonial revival garden that you can go all the way down to the layers of 18th century soldiers' gardens. We have dramatically grown our outreach program. So we now see kids in all across the United States with virtual classroom outreach and in-person outreach where we can drive to them. So we've come from an organization that really had tremendous potential and had already tremendous history to a place that I think is ready for this 250th anniversary moment. And in the last 2 years, we've had the opportunity to really broadcast this with our cinematographer. So our YouTube channel. I mean, just whatever we're doing on site, whatever the current moment is, we send it out. It's available online.
That Stuart, you mentioned the 250th. I like to ask all historical professionals this question, especially who work in the Revolution, because we've all kind of been waiting for this moment. There's more eyes on us probably than ever before. What
Yeah.
is Fort Ticonderoga hoping to achieve here in the 250th?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you mention that. I feel like for the last decade we've been preparing for this moment as well, kind of training for it. Um, I think if there's a fundamental thing that we can provide, I mean, so much of national attention is focused just on the signing of the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776. And to provide the perspective that, yes, indeed, that moment is important, that document is important, but this story is so much bigger. And the road that led to independence it's not a day, it's an 8-year war. And to have, Fort Ticonderoga's portion therein come to life, and also to be able to use Fort Ticonderoga's story, which both with our connections in the Seven Years' War and also with connections of peoples all around during the American Revolution. Our story connects to the story of the Revolutionary War in the Atlantic world. And it gives us the opportunity to say, no, this story is much bigger than just declaring independence. It's trite. I mean, I think it took a lot of labor to lead to liberty, which is, I think, more our way of saying, this freedom, which folks could easily take for granted, it wasn't free. It took a war to make it happen.
Yeah, one of the most critical points of the revolution really stems from Fort Ticonderoga, and that's the center of what we'll be talking about today. I guess just tell us for some background for those who really aren't familiar. What is the noble train of artillery? What is that story?
Yeah, I mean, so Henry Knox, 25-year-old Boston bookseller, had already kind of demonstrated his skills as a gentleman volunteer to Washington and other members of the Continental Congress as he worked on the American siege line surrounding Boston. And then on November 16th, Washington says, go, here are your orders. You're going to New York City. You're going to check out what we have in our artillery park here and, figure out what exactly we need. And after you get to New York City, you're headed to Ticonderoga. And there you're picking up not simply the guns of Ticonderoga, you are picking up what has been a whole campaign's worth of captured cannons to that point. Washington specifically mentioned not just Ticonderoga, but also Crown Point, also St. John's, and in the mix too, there was another British or captured fort we got from the British called Chambly. And so to bring this, these prizes of American victories to that point, to flesh out the American artillery park at the Siege of Boston. And with that, Washington and, now Knox on this mission, they've got a vision to, drive the British from Boston with this artillery and also build the Continental Army's artillery up to the point that it really can do the job that it's going to need to do. And I think, off a lot of history books, they kind of tritely say like, well, Washington was, or Knox was Henry Knox was Washington's artilleryman, which I think reduces his actual skill and vision. Just the other day, I was looking at an awesome letter from Washington. I think it was in August, and he's like, "I have plenty of artillerymen who know the exercise of guns. I need engineers." And Henry Knox brings, the big picture. And I think a 300-mile trek in 56 days with 59 pieces of artillery, that's big picture. That's thinking outside of just loading and firing a cannon.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a remarkable story. It's much bigger than we often think about. Give us a little insight. When he arrives in Boston, how does that change the war? Because that has long-term effects as well.
Yeah, I mean simply put, the net effect of this artillery was allowed Americans to liberate the first city of the Revolutionary War. Um, what this artillery was able, or what Henry Knox was able to do with its artillery, it took what had been, Americans at best could provide a nuisance. British accounts, especially being dug in, on the north side of Charlestown on bunkered Breeds Hill, they'd be like, yeah, 18 pounder, maybe a couple 24-pounder shot might fall on us once in a while, but that's about it. The Americans really, they had plenty of manpower. They could hem the British into Boston, but they lacked the wherewithal to really, you know, fight a real siege. And, we often kind of say like, well, sieges, they just kind of dug cannons and batteries, and just sat there. But a real siege was dynamic. And without, big cannons and big mortars. This man, they had the manpower, but they lacked the means by which to really, dynamically prosecute a siege. And, the most, dramatic and famous aspect of it, it was digging a whole series of cannon batteries on Dorchester Heights on the southwest side of the city, in a place that genuinely threatened the British fleet in the harbor. And once the fleet's at threat, the whole British means of supply, means of escape, all of those were under threat. Um, and it made it so that the British really had to make the calculus of, well, you know we're not only are we not getting anywhere, now our existence in this city on this very narrow isthmus, it is now under threat too, and really forced that decision. Which is a tremendous. I mean, like, up in our northern department, we had a whole series of victories from May right through November. I mean, getting to Montreal, it hadn't been that case for the main army, and it's puts us on a really good footing going into the rest of the 1776 campaign.
So, Fort Ticonderoga is preparing to celebrate this in a unique new way. As viewers can see, you're on the road right now. Tell us about this project.
Well, so right now I'm bringing our own pretty good train of artillery back to Ticonderoga. We've been working on a project called Guns for Ticonderoga with the support of Americana Corner to provide for us a pair of big French iron cannons, and then both traveling, the one with the big wheel on the front and the trail at the back, a pair of traveling carriages, and a pair of naval or garrison carriages. And those carriages, they just were completed. Your viewers will have to. I'm right in the middle of a prairie in South Dakota, and I'm going to be driving these all back. And these are these what will be complete artillery pieces. They're going to allow us to tell the story of the rest of 1776. Because we're really excited that coming up we've got the start of the Noble Train, and I could talk more about that in a moment. But the war didn't end with the relief of Boston, and this artillery that Henry Knox brought from Ticonderoga to the main army. Quite a lot of it went back to Ticonderoga. We don't know how much, but it ended up certainly back in our theater, and we have an example of half of a French mortar that came to the Lake Champlain and then ended up back at Ticonderoga again once the Americans dug in the summer. So without the artillery I'm bringing back, we'll be able to tell this big story, that the continued defense of what became a new nation. Um, Coming up, we've got the start of the Noble Train, and with that, we really want to capture the first leg of this. I mean, when everyone thinks of the Noble Train of artillery, this 1946 Thomas Lovell painting with the oxen and the sleds, and they're all piled up and they're going up and over a snowy hill, and Henry Knox is on his horse with his holsters in front. We want to get down into the nitty gritty of it, and really show our leg. The selection, the preparation of cannons at Fort Ticonderoga, and then the how they went first onto boats on Lake Champlain, and then from boats up the portage, this 3 mile section of road to get up to the level of Lake George, and we want to bring the kickoff to life.
Stuart, we have at the Journal of the American Revolution lots of different viewers from all different fields in history. Maybe from your perspective, from the public history perspective, what are the challenges that you found of making an exhibit or an event like this come together?
Yeah, I mean the challenge of it is, I mean, part of it's, say, seasonal. We run into many of the same winter challenges that Henry Knox had. Everything from being snowed in, which makes it hard for visitors to join us, to a lack of snow, which Henry Knox also faced. And people are like, well, I thought it was snowy. Um, I'd say, the challenge too, people, this moment, or this 56 day long stretch, the Noble Train, it's famous enough that people come with a lot of their own ideas about what it was. It's amazing, in our social media, there's folks in the all oxen camp and the all horses camp, and every one of them, you show one lot draft animal and they're angry about it. You show the other and the other camp's angry about it. Um, but of course, as a public historian, when people do have big opinions and big feelings about what something looked like, I have a hard time imagining it as a challenge. I think of it as an opportunity, an opportunity to show different perspectives, and to really drill down into the evidence. And Henry Knox was a good writer. So we've got, it's not like we have to guess. We've got his diary. We've got his letters to Washington. We've got, his letters to Philip Schuyler. All of those are out there. So there's no, of course in history, and as you well know, there's always things we don't know. But in this case, like, we know a lot, know a lot to answer these questions. I also, in that vein of kind of overcoming popular myths, I think there's a great opportunity to, you know, without diminishing Henry Knox's achievement in any way, show just how much bigger and how interconnected this was. It's not, him hatching the idea. It's him working for General Washington. It's not Henry Knox, just taking all the cannons from Ticonderoga. He took what were the spoils of war, from the work of thousands of American soldiers, winning victories, in our theater.
Excellent. So, Stuart, we always think about this when we design exhibits, when we put together a paper or a presentation. What would you hope be the thing that people walk away from this exhibit? I mean, in your perfect world, if someone said, "I learned this," what do you hope it would be?
I really hope people learn that, you know, there were many, many hands that led up to Henry Knox's achievement. And that it was simultaneously bigger than just Henry Knox, and it had impacts far beyond simply relieving the siege of Boston. That this took an American army which had a lot of great people, and suddenly put it on the verge of being, uh, an institution maybe capable of national defense. Something that would be, you know, able to fight the rest of the Revolutionary War, which, up until this point, it had still just been, still, you know, a revolt for rights as British subjects. This is part of changing the arc of the American Revolution itself.
Excellent. So, Stu, before we go, what's the best way for viewers to find information about visiting the fort and, all the particulars for enjoying this exhibit?
Yeah, I mean there we have up on our website www.fortticonderoga.org. If you go to our Ticonderoga 250th tab, there is Henry Knox's Noble Train of Artillery. There on that page, we got all of our options, everything from, what we'll be doing between December 5th, 6th, and 7th, inclusive of, you have a in-person and virtual program called Ticonderoga's Treasures Knox Edition, where people can check out, some of our original Knox stuff in our collection, virtually or in person. We've got our Living History event on site on December 6th, and then also our commemorative train of artillery, bringing our wagons and cannons and livestock right through the town of Ticonderoga on December 7th. But then just neat things that folks can do at home, like Henry Knox's reading list, and also links to our YouTube channel to see all of the content which we're putting out there as well.
Stuart, Lilie, thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.